What is up, guys? This is Mr. Hodges, and this is for stage 13. One big piece of grammar for this chapter is the infinitive form of verbs and how to identify verb conjugations. This is pretty simple, and we're going to go through it somewhat quickly. Pause if you need to, and email me with questions. Okay, so infinitive verbs. You guys are probably wondering what that is. It's actually very simple. As before with verbs, we've always been dealing with verbs that have been conjugated. For example, like I hear, I was hearing, or I heard. The endings change, the forms of the verb change based on their tense. For example, if you wanted to say you hear, this would change from audio to audis, with verb endings always changing. That is because all of these verbs have different subjects and they also have different tenses. Sometimes we need verbs to not have a tense or to not have a person attached to them, not have a subject attached to them. That is when we use what we call the infinitive down here. Infinitive literally meaning no boundaries and not bound to any one subject or tense. This is what we consider the base form of the verb. So in English, some examples are to hear, to see, and to talk. In the sense, it's my goal to become a chainsaw juggler. To be invited is a great honor. You can see here it's being used in a couple different ways. One is a complementary verb, and in the next sentence as a noun. In Latin, though, it's actually very simple how to recognize and form an infinitive. Notice how our English infinitives, oh my goodness, 1 second. I think I'll kill a puppy real quick. Alright, that should take care of that. Notice how all those English infinitives, to hear, to see, and to talk, they all have the word to in front of them. It's like to plus the verb. In English, that's how we show the infinitive. In Latin, we show a verb's infinitive by changing its ending. Just like that's pretty much how you figure out anything with a Latin verb. Usually, 99% of the time, Latin infinitives end in an RE. Check out the examples below. We have laborat, means he works. But if you want to change it to the infinitive, it would turn into laborare. Respondes means you respond. If you want to say to respond, you'd say respondere. Facimus, we make. Well, facere means to make. And to say they sleep, you say dormir. To say to sleep, you say dormire. Notice the RE at the end of all of these. If you see RE at the end of a verb, then it's probably the present infinitive, meaning to and whatever the verb means, to X. This is just a copy of the slide at the beginning of our last vocab. Now, instead of just having the two parts, just having the present form and the perfect form, you are now given the infinitive form as well. You need all of these things in order to know how to fully conjugate a verb on your own. Something we haven't fully discussed yet, but we will in the future. Learning the infinitive is a key part in that. The first principal part will always be the present tense, first person singular. The second principal part will always be the infinitive form, and the third principal part will always be the perfect tense. You need all three of these because they can change for any random reason, and just having them told to you is better than trying to just dig and figure them out. So, for the infinitive, they're very important. There's two major common uses. We're going to focus mostly on one, and that is pairing an infinitive with another verb, like to want to, volo, nolo, or possum, not want to, or unable to create a verb phrase. So, if we want to say, I want to see what happens when I eat 2 pounds of cheese, that underlined part, I want to see, we'd say ego volo vedere. Meaning I want, volo, and vedere, to see. You can also use infinitives as nouns. To squeal like a crazed marmot is not a good way to ask someone to prom. Or as you would say, to squeal in Latin would be bubilare. Down here are some more examples. Mettere possum, I am able to send. Consumere volo, I want to eat. Or dormire nolo, I don't want to sleep. Normally you'll see the infinitive first, followed by the conjugated verb. Just like with all things Latin, it's a little backwards from English, so you may need to rearrange. The words when you translate them. Now, one other thing that is very important about, that we need to know and need the infinitive in order to figure out is what conjugation a verb belongs to. Conjugations are to verbs like what declensions are to nouns. They are families that, oh my goodness gracious, 1 second. All right. So we need our new setup, the 3 principal parts of the verb in our vocabulary in order to figure out what conjugation a verb belongs to. There are actually a couple different ways to figure out what conjugation they belong to, but this is my favorite way and this is the best way. So, this table down here, you would do well to copy this down, pause the video if you need to, if you feel like I'm going too quickly. You can identify the conjugation of verbs by looking at the ending of the first and second principal parts. That is the first person singular form and the infinitive form of the verb. If the first person, and down here is just an example, second principal part, you can have ARE, ERE, or IRE endings. Notice how the second, third, and third IO conjugations all end in ERE. That's why you also look at the first principal part ending. First conjugation verbs will end in an O in their first principal part and ARE in their second principal part. Since there are no other conjugations that end with an ARE in their second principal part, you can just look for the ARE in the infinitive. For example, laudo, laudare, which means to praise. Second principal part, the second conjugation. The first principal part will end in EO, second will end in ERE. If you look over here, If you look over here, you'll see respondere. If you look over here, you'll see respondeo. That means it is a second conjugation verb. The EO at the end of the first one with an ERE in the second principal part. Third conjugation, first principal part will end with just an O, and the second principal part will also end in an ERE, just like the second. And the third IO, the second principal part will also end in an ERE, but you'll see an IO ending in the first principal part. Fourth conjugation, you'll see IRE in the second principal part, and you'll also see an O or an IO. You'll typically see an IO at the end of the first principal part. But if there's an IRE, it's always fourth conjugation. It's never not fourth conjugation if it has an IRE, just like it's never not first conjugation if the second principal part ends in ARE. The only part where you really need to worry about the first principal part is if you see ERE ending in the second principal part. Now, why are these important? They'll become more important later on when we really focus on composition and having to conjugate verbs in different places. You may remember how when we would write out or look at certain Latin verbs that you'll see a random U or an IU pop up or an IE pop up between like the stem and the ending. For example, dormit turns into dormiebat, and we wonder where that IE comes from. That comes from it being a fourth conjugation verb. If you want to know more about that, you can ask me and I can explain it to you, but I assure you we will get to it in due time. Pause now if you need to finish copying this table. It will be very useful for you. All right. Here's some practice. What you want to do is just by looking at these verbs to look to identify the conjugation of them. Pause now and try and get an answer for each one and resume when you're done, and we'll go over the answers. Okay. So you'll see doceo, docere is second conjugation. Capio, capere is third IO conjugation. Canto, cantare is first conjugation. Interficio, interficere is third IO conjugation again. Dormio, dormire is fourth conjugation. Moneo, monere is second conjugation. And I think dico, dicere kind of popped up in there, but it would be third conjugation since the first principal part ends in O and the second principal part ends in ERE. I hope that was relatively easy for you. And lastly, we have our irregular infinitives. Like I said, 99% of the time, an infinitive will end in RE. Well, the only 1% when it doesn't are these few verbs that are irregular. So you have sum and esse. That means to be. That's, sum, es, est, sumus, esti, sunt. We see it all the time. Then we have a couple of our new verbs. Give me 1 second. Actually, I need to add something. There we go. Just wanted to change that bottom verb from AO to possum, one that we actually use. Either way, so we'll see wolo, nolo, and possum are 3 new verbs for this chapter, the ones that typically get combined with the infinitives of other verbs to create verbal phrases. All these verbs, they are irregular. They may follow the OST pattern, but the verb endings or the verb forms change throughout, and they just need to be studied, and that's what the foldable is for that we did in class. You'll see the esse in this case would mean to be, wele would mean to want, nole would mean to not want, and posse would mean to be able to or can. However, you won't really see wele, nole, or posse very often because typically the verbs that are infinitive would be other verbs that you form with that you add to a form like wolo or wolt or nolo or nolunt or possum or potest. Typically, this is the verb that's conjugated. Here's how you say, I want to be the very best in Latin. So enjoy that, Pokemon fans. And that's it for infinitives. Please feel free to go back if you need any of this explained. There's plenty of practice online. And be sure for these verbs, it's more important, wolo, nolo, and possum, and especially sum, est, to really study these and be able to recognize their conjugated forms. Not so much their infinitive, but I figured I'd be doing you a disservice if I did not tell you about them. Let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything I can do to make these videos better for you, and good luck.